Shooting it raw?
Yes. Shooting it raw.
Hello.
Kerri.
Ran.
Oh, so good to talk to you. Oh my goodness.
Awesome.
Okay, so Kerri Wall, how about you tell me a story about the first time you learned how to ride a bicycle so I could check the sound levels.
Sure. I believe it was a blue and white banana seat, like high handlebars number. It seemed really big to me, but I was only 4 years old. It just seemed like such a big girl bike.
Uh-huh.
And it did have a couple of crashes.
Of course.
I remember one in the parking lot in front of the Safeway, one in the gravel alley behind our house.
Nice.
But I picked it up pretty fast, and I've been in love with bikes ever since.
Of course, yes, and we will talk about that. Okay, so hold on, I have to do this right. So Kerri Wall is joining me on Shooting It Raw, and it's such a treat. We've known each other for many years, drifted past each other once in a while. You're a good person, good beans, really smart, and really happy to have you on the podcast.
Thank you so much, Ran. It's lovely to hear your voice and be with you. I'm glad our paths are crossing again.
Wow. That's my ridiculous, like, cheesy guitar. Okay. Usually how it works is we just dive into the photos and see where the conversation takes us. And I know it's going to be just great. Great. Cool. So,
I like your format. This is a great format.
Oh, okay. Nice. Okay. So the first photo is photo one. It's basically, I'll just describe it. It's like you're standing, I guess, in a bit of a high meadow, not quite above the tree line, maybe above the tree line. And the bottom part of the image is just really nice green trees. It's probably summer. In the back, there are these like really jagged, beautiful peaks that could, to me, only say Rocky Mountains. Maybe I'm completely wrong. And then blue sky, not a cloud in the sky. So what is this picture?
So I took this photograph with my iPhone 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago yesterday.
Nice.
And it's not far from my house or my apartment where I am right now in Fernie, British Columbia.
Fernie, British Columbia.
Fernie. So these mountains in the center of the photograph, we call them the Three Sisters. Some people, I think there might be an older name. Some people might call it Mount Trinity.
Uh-huh.
Again, because of the three sisters.
Right.
I have hiked up to the top of that top one in the middle before. I did that one time.
Wow, that looks really aggressive. It looks really.
It was a big deal.
Well, so essentially, you're looking at this rocky mountain range, and you see the tree line thin out, and then the top of the peaks are just rock. It just looks like rock and shadow.
It is definitely a Rocky Mountain vibe. It is in the Canadian Rockies.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
So were you bike riding to this point to make this photo?
Actually, on this day, I was simply walking. My body doesn't like it if I bike too many days in a row. Too much time in the saddle or like sitting down.
Oh, that's rough.
I need to mix it up a bit. So on this day, actually, it was the afternoon. It was like, well, maybe it's not hot for you in Hong Kong, but here it was 34 degrees.
That's hot.
And I thought, you know what, I just want to walk. I'm not going to bike. I'm going to give myself a rest. And I got to this point where I took the photograph after walking from my house for about maybe 20 or 30 minutes.
Nice.
Yeah. And I looked up and I was remarking, because it's usually at this time of the year that the Three Sisters are finally bare of snow.
Mm.
They're only fully bare of snow for a few weeks of the year. And in fact, I think there might be some little tiny pockets of snow in the shadow.
Yeah, you can see some snow in there.
It looks like there's some snow in there, but I looked yesterday. I was up at the same spot yesterday on my bike, and I didn't see any snow. But then typically, by next week, we could have snow up there again.
Oh, dude. Well, it's just beautiful. I know what it's like to ride in the mountains in BC, and it's so dramatic, and it's so beautiful, and it's so perfect, and this to me is just wow. Yeah. So this is only a half-hour walk from your house.
Yeah, I leave my apartment. I walk down the street. I walk through a little residential neighborhood, which is almost all single family housing. Although I do live in an apartment building, and then in about 10 minutes, I'm out in the forest.
I'm laughing. I'm also laughing for something else. Okay, so
Oh, that's kind of like where you live, no?
not
You
yeah.
you
Well,
have some jungle really accessible?
oh yeah, it's right. Basically, the backyard is basically the
Right,
yeah.
right, right.
But good point though. But no, the reason why I'm laughing is because my daughter now is going to like a Canadian international school, and
Ah,
the people who work there are from Alberta. And
uh-huh.
when I hear Americans make fun of Canadians, just listening to the words that you're using now, it's like about and out, and it's like we say it like
That's me.
no, hold on. But it's not the kind of the bad cliche of about and out,
Oh,
and
okay.
so I'm just like, yeah, you're full on Canadian. I love it because you're not saying it. I love it.
Oh, that's good. Okay, great.
I no, it's such a for me. This is a perfect example of Canada summer at its finest. Wow, and as you
Right.
say, 34 degrees. A lot of people don't realize it can get really hot.
Yes, it's really hot. I was a hot, sweaty day, and I was walking alone, and I was really feeling the isolation of that photograph because I've been quite isolated lately. And I thought, well, here I am out in the forest all by myself, looking at the mountains, just feeling like identifying with that sense of isolation.
Well, I'm assuming you're saying isolation because of COVID or because of just socially now you're in part in your life where you're just isolated from people for whatever reason that I don't know.
It's both.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it in
Yeah, it's both.
a Zen sense, a good sense, or a negative sense?
It goes between the two of them, but I mean, COVID has sort of exacerbated what was already going on with me for the last few years. So a part of what I'm feeling in this photograph is also that sense of I'm an empty nester
Uh-huh.
because my son is 23. He's moved out, and this is my first summer ever living without him.
Oh, wow.
Oh yeah, and actually, it's my first summer ever living alone. That
Oh,
I'm having these firsts. I've never lived alone in the summer before. Never
wow.
lived without my son ever before in the summer.
Who has the greatest name?
Does he have the greatest name?
He does have the greatest name.
Nakota. It's
I
a
know.
great name.
Nakota.
Thank you.
Such a beautiful name.
Nakota.
Yeah, it's you're alone. As soon as you're born, you start dying. It can be pretty.
Right?
It's just, but yeah, I get, and especially with COVID, it's even more pronounced. Are you doing okay? Are you okay? How's your mental health?
I would say my mental health is really, really good.
Okay, so when people who know me and well, first of all, my name means joy, and my energy is spastic and like but people would say I'm pretty positive and smiley and fun.
You
and
come
all.
across that way.
Well, it's all an act. It's all an
But
act.
some of us know more about you than others.
Sure.
Yeah, yeah.
But I know you as that too, as being really full of energy, positive, optimistic.
Thank you.
Yeah, and we could talk about your work in leadership, and we'll probably get to that later. But yeah, so as you say, this is your first time living alone, summer alone. Okay.
And it makes sense that you would ask about mental health. I think that's very appropriate and very compassionate
Oh.
to ask about that. Absolutely.
Yeah, well, in a podcast that I'm going to publish. Oh, yeah, so do tell me about your problems.
That's right. How does it feel, Carrie? It's an adjustment.
Sure.
It's a total adjustment. Yeah.
Is Fernie, for people who've never been, such as myself, what is Fernie like? Is it like this podunk town of one gas station and one grocery store?
We got 2 grocery stores. I think there's 3 gas stations. There's 2 sets of traffic lights, I think.
How many family names?
Right, yeah, there are quite a few. But there's that's a good question. There are about 5,000 people is the population of the town.
Right.
And it's a very, it's pretty homogeneous. Like, it's very white people,
Okay.
European heritage for sure town.
Okay.
And yeah, there's a pretty working class vibe in town because the main industry here is coal mining.
Oh, wow. Really? Oh.
Coal mining, we're like the coal mining capital of Canada.
Oh, I didn't know this.
And then also, but tourism. So tourism's a close second because we've got all this like mountain recreation going on.
Nice.
So there's coal mining, mountain recreation
What about
are
hemp?
the big.
Is hemp beginning to grow there?
Not,
As an
I
industry?
mean, I think there is some, but not like in the West Kootenays. So I'm Fernie is called, in terms of British Columbia political geography, it's called the East Kootenay.
Okay.
And then like the towns of Nelson, which you might be familiar with, Nelson and Rossland, they're in the West Kootenay. And it's hot. It's hotter there. They have a bit of a different climate, and they're very much known for hemp production.
Right. What is the largest game animal that you've seen most recently?
That would be an elk.
Okay. How recent?
Friday.
Ah, there you go. That's very Canadian. What was the most what was the most full on animal in terms of carnivore?
Oh, like a carnivore.
I mean, I don't want to use the word cougar since that would describe you as well.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. You're right. Is that good or bad? Cougars are cougars are around, but they're stealth. I haven't seen a cougar in years, actually. Bears, we see bears. They're not carnivores. They're more omnivore.
Sure, but bears will mess you up. They're pretty full on.
Bears.
Is it grizzly or black bears out there?
We have more black bears, but I'm on a Facebook page that is a local like mountain biking trails page, and people will often post like, "Oh, just saw a grizzly at the such and such junction," or "Oh, just saw a family of black bears at the top of such and such trail," like give people a heads up. Yeah,
full on.
So I've been seeing posts like that this week. I heard there's some grizzlies around.
Wow. Okay. Well, this sets the tone, I think, very beautifully, very nicely.
Great.
Okay. You want to move on to the next photo? Or do you want to say anything else about this one? Okay.
No, this is great.
I love the next photo too. Because I get to see half of your face. So in this photo, do you want to describe the photo or shall I describe the photo? What I see?
Go ahead, Rand. Okay. You're good at it.
Oh, thanks. Okay. So it's basically the photograph is at your sternum upwards. You're wearing a cardigan, what I'd call a Kurt Cobain cardigan. You know, this particular one is charcoal, and you've got, let's see, so you can see half of your face cut off at the top lip, and then you've got the hashtag Anosmia awareness sort of lanyard in orange and white, and you're in a kind of like a, I don't know, it looks like a classroom potentially. Yeah. So photographically, some would say it's not exactly in focus, blah, 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 all that crap. But it's a selfie. It's from what I know of you, it's meaningful. So why don't you talk about the absent.org or whatever? Like why send me this image as your second image?
Sure. Thanks. Yeah, this is important to me. This is symbolizes or signifies a big loss I had just over 2 years ago. I became anosmic. I have a condition called anosmia, and what that means is I can't smell, but also consequently I can't really taste I can't taste either. So food is pretty much dead to me. Like food is just a chore. Really, eating's not enjoyable anymore. So it's a big loss. Wow. And I posted this selfie with the hashtag anosmia awareness lanyard that I received from absent.org on February 28th. I'm pretty sure is the date that I posted this on my Instagram. It's International Anosmia Awareness Day.
Wow.
And so, of course, you only see half my face because I purposely cut off my nose because having anosmia is like having no nose.
And no taste, as you say.
Yeah, I know. My mouth is closed. But yeah, the tasting, I can taste sweet and salty and sour. But
essentially not the tone, right? So you have the
like if I eat peanut butter, I can taste like maybe if there's some sugar or some salt in it, but I wouldn't know even that it's peanut butter.
Oh, like, my goodness.
Yeah.
Wow. 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 So how did it come on set? Look, this is going to be kind of an educational thing for other people.
Sure.
So,
Let's.
so did it come suddenly or did it come gradually?
It was suddenly, and
Huh.
you may have heard, well, a lot of people have now, there's been a huge increased awareness about anosmia because it's a symptom also of COVID.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
People losing their sense of smell and taste for a period of time. And so, but I became anosmic in May 2018, well before the coronavirus.
Mm-hmm.
But the doctors who I saw many, all postulated that it must be due to a virus. Like it must, so they call it post-viral anosmia.
Holy shit.
The other kinds of anosmia that people tend to get are like from a head trauma. They call it's like a.
We could talk about that.
So you could have had a brain injury or a head trauma, and then it's like post-traumatic anosmia. And then I've also known some people who have become anosmic due to what happens when they've been treated for cancer. I don't know if it's the chemotherapy or the radiation, but that can also induce anosmia. And then a very, very tiny percentage of the population is born anosmic. And usually those people are simply born without an olfactory bulb in their brain.
Wow. 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 Have you met people with that?
Not in real life.
Okay.
But connected online a little bit. There are congenital anosmics out there, but they're a very tiny percentage of the population.
And is it essentially at this point done, fixed, not to return? Or is there a potential that for whatever reason, however, you will somehow regain that faculty?
It may come, like there's no promises. People seem to know very little about anosmia, and it's only really become under recent medical or research scrutiny because of the coronavirus.
Wow.
So up till now, people have said, well, who knows? Literally, who knows? Some people will live their whole lives never regaining it, and some people, they will suddenly come back, or it will slowly come back. Some people, it comes and goes.
So here's how I'll bring my experience to it.
Sure.
You mentioned head trauma. Okay, I was run over by a car. I had brain injury. I don't remember being in the hospital and having any kind of anosmia. I mean, I have no sense of that. But what I do remember is as the amnesia started to fade and I was paralyzed in the hospital bed, I remember, in fact, having a very heightened sense of smell. So,
really?
and in fact, Delian, to this day, says, I live in a world of smells that atypical. Like she has never, I don't think she's met people quite like me in that I really do inhabit this world of smell where it's quite, if anything, it's way attuned super high. So if anything, I can't, I can't quite relate, but I can imagine how, as you say, food is a chore. And it's kind of like, like to have that sapped away. Yeah. So how did you process this?
Well, it's interesting. I kind of like, I was listening to a few of your podcasts. Oh yeah. The one with your sister, Yael. I was listening to that one recently. And I think you were talking at some point, I forget now why, but you were talking about like the 4 or 5 stages of grief.
Oh, right.
And the first one is denial. And so I was having denial for like a number of months.
Wow. Okay.
It's not really happening. I'll just ignore it. It'll turn around. I don't know what's happening. I'll think about other things. Like I wasn't really accepting it. And then for a while I was definitely angry, which I think is the next sort of clinical phase of grief. And then
rationalization.
I don't know if I rationalized. I'm not sure. I don't know if I went through that. But then I did go through like a long period of grieving as if I'd lost a loved one or someone had died.
Sure.
And I was very, very, very sad and did a lot of crying about it. And then I remember thinking, well, am I just sad about this? Or am I also sad now that like I'm becoming an empty nester and Dakota's gone away to college? I was like, what am I grieving? And sometimes people therapists and grief experts, they do talk about how you go through layers of grief.
Sure.
And I was like, okay, well, here we are. We're just going to grieve everything, I guess.
Uh-huh.
And so
Well, there's no
I just
well, there's no defining line, like, right, especially with something like
Right.
smell, which is so intimate. You know, I mean, it's like, you know, in terms of how I would bring. I mean, like me, when I am intimate with somebody, I get my nose right in there. You know.
Yeah,
And
of course.
and so I could totally see how. And I'm sorry if what I'm saying is
No,
making it more
it's fine.
present for you, but
No, this is fine.
wow, yeah, I can, and you know, like for example, I was listening to this one neuroscientist saying that essentially our eyes are connected to our brains in a way that our eyes are really just extensions of our brains. But then when you think about your nose, it is, you know, like for example, I was walking with Cadence, and she said, like just yesterday, oh, you know, this smell reminds me of Pal River, right? Just speaking of British Columbia. And I was
Right.
just, you know, she's in Hong Kong, yet a smell connects her immediately to Pal River. And so for you, I mean, so what is the last thing you remember smelling?
Oh, that's interesting. I don't know. I don't know what it was. I do remember when I first discovered I was anosmic, though. I'd come back from what I thought was a pretty sweaty mountain bike ride, and I took off my shirt and I gave it the smell test to see if, like, could I wear it riding again tomorrow, or does it really need to go in the laundry?
Problem solved. Bad
And I
joke.
smelled
Bad
it.
joke.
I know. I was like, oh, I guess I can wear it again tomorrow. Whatever. Weird.
Huh.
The next day I wore it. I went riding again, came back, and I took it off and smelled it. And I was like, it still doesn't smell. That doesn't make sense. And I put it in the laundry. I jumped in the shower, you know, took out the shampoo, and I was like, I can't smell the shampoo. And suddenly
Oh, yeah.
I was like,
Holy
oh,
shit.
what is happening?
Oh my goodness.
But I don't remember the last thing I smelled. That's a great question.
Huh. Wow. So one of the things that, like, when I had the brain injury, I could remember, for example, cognitively, I was like that of a 5 or an 8-year-old, right? Like in the sense of I had a severe brain injury, and I could not perform better than a 5 or an 8-year-old on cognitive tests. Yet I could remember, I knew what it was like to be able to read and think and be a high performing person. But
You had
know,
the memories.
I could remember that, right? Like I knew what that felt like. I could remember what walking felt like, even though I couldn't walk. So what is, how does memory fit into your anosmia? Like, how does that?
Yeah.
How do you experience memory of smell?
So I work hard sometimes to conjure memories of smell, and it's difficult to do, I think, because we humans, we don't have a vocabulary around smell so much. And you know, every time we want to describe a smell, some of us.
Yeah, I live in a different
You
world,
may
but
be
yeah.
different. Yeah. And lots of times if you try to describe a smell, like, what does that smell like? You will use another smell to describe it with.
Right.
Because we don't really have anything beyond that to describe smells. So congenital anosmics who've never smelled, they don't know what they're missing. Like, they just don't have a clue.
Sure.
But acquired anosmics, I can often go to my memory bank, and even if I can't conjure the smell, I have a vague, you know, I know that I liked it or I didn't, or if it was pleasant or not. And when I'm out in the world with people and they smell things, which happens all the time,
Sure.
you know, we'll be walking and somebody will say, oh, does that ever smell good? Where's that coming from? You know, like, oh, who's cooking? Or someone's barbecuing. I'm like, what? Really? How do you know? You know, I don't know. You know, and people talk about, you know, and even
smoke
somebody was talking. Yeah. Somebody the other day was saying, oh, you know, I was out hiking. I smelled something funky, came across a carcass.
Wow.
And I think, and some bear scat. I got out of there and I thought, ooh, I wouldn't know. Like, if I smelled something, like, I would not have that clue or whatever. But I like it when people describe to me what's going on in the world, because I have the memory bank to draw on. when they tell me like, oh, there must be a movie theater nearby, I'm smelling popcorn. I'm like, oh, that's cool. I can totally remember what that smell is like, and I like it. And I like to be able to work my brain that way to try to remember the smell and draw it up out of the depths of my brain.
Interesting. Yeah. By analogy, like one of the things with me when I was going through that time, I would have to rediscover experiences, and then the memories would I'd have to tap into them, and I have to go like kind of go through these like almost like a maze, or kind of go like it was like this weird exploratory thing where all of a sudden, when I would remember something that I'd forgotten, I'd be like, oh yeah, that's it. Like it was this.
It's
like,
a big brain exercise.
Yeah. How interesting.
Wow.
So, have you ever smelled durian? If I say durian, do you know what that smells like? It's a very specific.
Don't, but people say it's very pungent, very strong.
It's a very unique smell, and I'm not saying this like, oh, maybe you guys. No, not that. But it's kind of like, it's so people would. It's like coffee. Like how do you describe coffee?
Yeah.
Oh, as you say, you use it by analogy. Oh, this one's very chocolatey, and this one's very, vaginal. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay. Everybody's just like, what kind of coffee does this guy have that's vaginal?
I've heard people say like, oh, well, you could eat durian then and you wouldn't be put off by it. If people say that it's a
but if you don't taste it,
maybe an acquired smell, or I don't know what the deal is with it. I've never.
Yeah, well, it's sort of like, it's, for example, here, somebody from the Philippines will eat durian and go, oh, this is so yummy and creamy and delicious. But then they'll smell blue cheese and say, like, how can you possibly eat that? How revolting. And yet people who eat blue cheese will be like, oh my God, how can you eat durian? That's like the most disgusting smell ever. And yet.
Right.
But then for you, it's like, as you say, like, who cares? Like, it's just texture, right? A little sweet. Just texture.
But I like it when you said the word blue cheese. I haven't thought about blue cheese since I don't know when, but as soon as you said it, I had the memory of what blue cheese smells like, and I was like, oh, I like that. I like thinking about that. That's fun.
Yeah, it's good. Good one. Okay, we're going to come back to this. I know we are, but let's move on to the next image because also important. So this one, so essentially it's a photograph of stickers that you might hand out to, while canvassing. They're all square. In the stickers are like big green circles with a yellow check mark, and something about October 21st. It's important. And then you have different slogans, which are like, because climate crisis, because the future, because respect for diversity, because equality. And it's the green something or other. So there's Green Party of Canada. Yeah. So tell me, what is this image? What is this about?
So these are stickers related to the federal election in Canada last year. Was October 21st was the election day, voting day, 2019.
A whole world away. Oh my goodness.
It was in the before times.
Yeah. Okay.
It was a federal election. And it was the first election campaign that I ever became involved in, and I became very heavily involved in it. Mm-hmm. Partly because it was interesting because I think there's a direct correlation between my anosmia and my decision to become involved in politics.
Oh, okay.
As I was really grieving for a number of months, feeling like all these parts of my life were dropping away, really things related to sensual pleasure, essentially. Mm-hmm. I realized over time, it just seemed like sort of a natural process as I was grieving and moving through the emotions and coming to terms with my new experience of the world. I thought, I thought I am mentally focused now. I'm a mentally focused, intellectually focused person. Like the world of sensual pleasures, that door's closed.
And it's not going to distract you.
I don't know. I just felt like, okay, the door's closed. And then I looked over here and I thought, well, this other door, I could explore this other door a lot more fully than I ever have before. Mm-hmm. And I became much more focused in like my thoughts. And yeah, I don't know. It's sort of like I became a thinking person in a new way. Mm-hmm. And then I got and the things that I was thinking about at work. I work for the health system, and I work in population health. And we look at things like, what are the things that help people be healthy? And we know that the things that really help is if people have stable housing and education and income, if they're not facing things like racism and discrimination, those kind of things. But those kind of things aren't within the realm of the healthcare world to look after. Those are all political things. And I just decided to become much more politically involved.
Okay. Wow. So conservationist, clearly a humanist, making the world a better place, which is, totally, look, right up my alley. So when you say you got involved, so at what level? So you're just sort of helping somebody else get more prominent, or you're kind of stepping forward into the spotlight?
Well, in my day job, working for the health system, I do local government policy work with municipalities for the most part, but we stay abreast of things happening at other political levels because that really impacts what's happening at the local government level. And I knew we had this election coming up, and one day at work, I thought, well, who's running in our federal riding? Like who's running? I knew who the MP was, and I knew he was going to run again. And I thought, well, I just opened Google and I did a quick search, and I noticed that the three people from the three parties who had already had declared candidates were all white men in their 60s. And I looked at that and I said, I said to myself, like, again? What? Like, why? Why is it always like this?
They're a motivated class. They got it good.
They are motivated. And I was just shaking my head looking at this, and I just thought, well, something has to be done about this. Like, well, who's going to do something about this? Like, someone better do something about this. And like, it was just really a short few minutes later that I thought, well, is it someone, or like maybe you're someone? And so then I started wondering, like, what some of the other parties were doing. We have a multi-party system in Canada, although there's only two parties that have ever been in federal power before. But we do have a number of parties. There was a party last year that had quite a high profile. That was like a breakaway party from the Conservatives called the People's Party of Canada. I'm not sure if you're familiar with them. They were very short-lived. Okay. But they ran a lot of candidates last year, and they had a lot of money. Anyway, so the People's Party of Canada had a candidate, the Conservatives had a candidate, the NDP had a candidate, and I thought, well, who's running for the Greens? And so I checked out the Green Party of Canada that I'd never really paid any attention to before. And I got in there, and I said, well, maybe I'll run.
Right, there you go. Finally got it. Okay, cool. Okay.
And then, but it turned out that I found out that, there was another woman in Nelson. So our federal riding where I live, because it's rural, is massive. So Nelson is also within the riding where I live here in Fernie. And I found out, there's a woman in Nelson who has also put her name forward. And you two could be, contestants for the nomination. And that'd be really exciting if you did have a contestant race, because then it would bring more
royale,
attention.
For sure.
It would bring attention. And so then I go, well, who is it? Who is it? Well, it turns out it's a colleague of mine who I love and respect dearly.
And you didn't even know.
No. So then we found out. So then her and I, we had this very cooperative, very friendly nomination contestant race. And it turned out she won. She got 4 more votes than I did. Maybe 3 more votes than I did, I think.
Wow.
So then, but we had promised that whoever gets the nomination, like the other person will work on their campaign.
100%. Cool.
So then she became the candidate, and I worked on her campaign very hard. But then a short time after that, so when I was a nomination contestant, the Greens did this whole background check. They had to vet me. They vet all the candidates. I'm not really sure what goes on the inside of a vetting process, but I was vetted. I had to answer a lot of questions and provide a lot of information about my history and various things. And then I was asked, like, a while later, hey, we had a candidate drop out in Saskatchewan, and it turned out that she didn't actually pass the vetting process. They said, you've already been vetted. We only have a short time till all the candidates' names have to be in. Can you run in that riding? Like,
nice. And you're like, I've never been there.
Actually, I have. I grew up in Saskatchewan.
Oh, okay.
But it wasn't the riding where I grew up, but it was just north of there. I mean, I know the area. And so I said, sure. So I actually was on the ballot for the federal election last year in a riding that I never visited. And I couldn't vote for myself, but I ran as what they call a paper candidate, which means you just basically have your name on the ballot.
Sure.
And the reason, it was a new decision that the Green Party of Canada had made a few years prior. They said they had this new goal that they wanted to run a candidate in every riding across the country. 338 ridings. They wanted 338 candidates. That was their new plan.
Right.
And so I helped them with that plan.
Nice.
So I was on the ballot, and I actually got almost 900 votes.
Okay. Wow.
Well, I don't know. That's something.
No,
I didn't even go there. Yeah.
It's well, here I think, it's okay. So let's pull back a little bit because we're talking about milestones and stuff. So we've known each other for years and years and years and years. And back in whenever 1902, I think, when I was doing performances, and you came to a show, and I was an old man back then. I was young. No, that doesn't make sense.
25 years ago. I met you 25 years ago this summer.
Jumping Jesus! Wow! And we've been good friends and not necessarily in each other's lives, but one of the things when I went back to BC and I saw you in Victoria, we were talking a bit about Royal Roads University. Oh, there's a plug. Royal Roads University, payers of huge sponsors of Shooting It Raw. Not true. Not true. But we're talking about their leadership and support program, and then so was your decision to go into to say, okay, I'm going to go with the Green Party and see how I can contribute my energy. Was that in any way supported by the change that you'd gone through in your leadership development, or is this prior to that whole sort of evolution?
I think it's definitely part of my evolution as a leader and in terms of leadership development, because I got my master's degree in leadership in 2006.
Okay.
From Royal Roads. And I've been
they better send a check.
I've been doing various forms of leadership since then, and I think this is absolutely part of that leadership journey. Okay.
Wow. Okay, cool. Let's go back here. This is what's interesting to me, right?
Okay.
I like getting into that. It's that whole moment of when you make that decision that you kind of your subconscious feeds it and whatever leads you toward that decision point, right? So you have the training, you have the work, you'd never really paid to the Green Party of Canada, but then suddenly you thought, okay, I've got this capacity in my brain now because I'm not smelling stuff. I'm, all of us,
distracted.
I'm not distracted by farts and whatever. And then, so let's rewind the tape to that day, to the moment where you kind of had the sort of the internal inclination, the gears are turning and you're sort of, So what was that like? What was that day like?
You talking about the moment that I decided to become involved with the Green Party?
Sure. As in terms of that, to finally go, you know what? I think I'm going to do it.
It might have really been that day I decided that I looked on the web and I saw that there was 3 older white men all running, and I thought, well, I'm just not cool with this. Like, I can't abide by this. This just doesn't make sense to me. So that was my first gut instinct and I went online, I bought a membership to the Green Party, gave them a bunch of money because I wanted them to know I was serious. So I thought, well, how much money do you donate? Like, you can get a membership for as little as $10. And I thought, no, I'm going to give them like a chunk of change because I want them to know that I mean it. Mm-hmm. And I thought, I mean this. Like, I mean it right now. I mean it. I want to be involved. If it means I throw my hat in the ring and I run to be the candidate, so be it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I came home and I talked to friends about it, talked to my son and his girlfriend about it, and wanted to sort of, like check my gut reaction and, get a little more rational about it. And I thought about things like, what you speak about in terms of servant leadership, and I think I'm in leadership to help, like to give back, to make the world a better place, like you said earlier. And it doesn't help anything if I play small or say, oh no, why would I do that? Or, if I have something to contribute, like that leadership identity it's a responsibility to me. Like, it's a responsibility to help make things go well, like to help things, to help people, to help the world. And it doesn't help anybody if I sit home and think, oh, who am I to do that? Oh, that looks hard. Or I might get embarrassed or make a fool of myself. I better not.
So let's imagine that making that commitment on that day, in that moment, or whatever it was, where you're just like looking online and you're just like, okay, wait a second. Let's imagine, now this is going to be, look, it's a bit of a leap, but let's imagine that's a smell. Okay. Let's imagine that's a smell and that you have to start ascribing, ascribing qualities to somebody who doesn't know what that feels like or what that is like, what that sense is like, to have that decision to sort of say, you know what, I'm going to toss my hat in the ring. Who knows where it'll end up. Right. What are the tones? What are the overtones? What are the things that you'd say like, well, it's kind of like this or it's kind of like that. So how would you make that connection to somebody who's kind of like either thinking of doing something similar or somebody who has no idea, who's like, screw that, I'm never doing shit like that?
Okay, tell me if I'm on the right track with your question here, because I like the way you worded that. That was really good. I would say something like, what do you want for your life? What do you want for your children? What are some of your deepest desires? What's important to you? And then, so are you going to see to it? Who's going to see to it that happens? And I think a leadership mentality is like, it's deciding, well, I'll see to it.
Okay.
Like, oh, I wish my kid got treated better at school. You can sit and wish that, or you can say, well, I could see to it.
Okay.
I'm going to call some of those other parents. I'm going to invite those kids over. I'm going to meet the teacher. You know what I mean? It's proactive. It's going after what you want.
Okay. Is there an overtone of competitiveness? Like so for example, I think of you as driven. For example, somebody who does as much cycling and whatever that you do is clearly going to be driven because it's sometimes it's a social thing, but it's mostly it can for me at least it's a very kind of solitary thing. But do you have an internal driver or is it a social driver that makes you push ahead?
I think it's mostly internal.
So self-motivated, not necessarily, I want to do this for the group.
No, it's not really. I mean, I wish I had more of a group. I wish I had a group.
Oh, so we're going back to the photo of you on the mountain.
And it's interesting because getting involved with the Green Party, I have met a group. Like now I'm with a group.
So you're part of a tribe.
Green Party people. And that's really fun for me. So yeah, so part of my motivation was social, but definitely not in a competitive way. It's more in a collaborative, where are my people? How can we work together? I want to be on a team sense.
Right.
Yeah. So for that, there was a social drive for that, because I remember thinking, well, I can sit here on my own and wish things were different, or I could get together with a team and everyone's working on it together. That sounds more fun. That sounds more efficient. Would
you say though that because the Green Party of Canada is a is a more formal political organization, that there's less room for that kind of happy accident?
Perhaps. That's a good question. I haven't been involved for too long. Like, I've really only been involved for, not even a year and a half.
Okay.
But I don't, with politics and with the Green Party of Canada, but I can't think of any happy accidents.
Well, that's too bad. Well, one's around the corner.
Okay, good. Or maybe this podcast. I don't know, because it's a happy accident that you asked me to be here. I don't know what, but yeah, maybe it is around the corner.
Who knows? So is there a kind of emergence between your political work, your career work, and then your work to raise consciousness for the fact that you can't smell?
It's neat. I do find them all really coming together in quite an incredible way. That part's been really neat, because it was so clear to me that, studying leadership and even how I've refined my ideas about leadership through parenting, because to me, that's a whole leadership journey, being a parent. Mm-hmm. That's massive. And I write a monthly column about parenting teenagers for a magazine here in Fernie, and I still lead parent support groups and do a bunch of leadership in terms of parenting. But, that coming together with my day job and my anosmia and my political work, I do feel like I'm having this increased sort of focus towards it's a focusing of my skills and my experience towards where I might have the greatest impact, or where I'm most interested to have an impact. Even the fact of my performance background, as you alluded to, when we met 25 years ago in a theatrical context, the fact that I've got this theater background, which is actually tiny and a long time ago now, but that too has brought me to a place where I'm very comfortable with public speaking. I'm happy to be in front of crowds. That part's easy for me, and it's a pillar, yeah. And so I've got all these pillars I'm standing on, and all these experiences, they're pointing me in this direction.
2006 you graduated, or you started in 2006?
I graduated in 2006.
Okay.
I started the Leadership Master's Program in 2004.
Okay. And so you graduated in 2006. So one of the dimensions, that I co-authored this book, 12 Dimensions of a Service Leader. And one of the dimensions, this idea of maturation, continuous learning. How have your thoughts, when you learn a program, is generally a kind of summary of different ideas and whatever. But then over time of you being in the mud of leading and maybe talking about leadership and thinking about leadership, how has your maturity aged your ideas of leadership? And has it changed in respect to what's around you environmentally?
Yeah, there's definitely been a huge maturation process. That's a huge part of it. I feel like I see systems a lot better now, and how things work systemically, and I'm really not so worried about what people think of me, or I'm not worried about competing with others. We can all be leaders. The world needs everyone to be a leader, frankly. The more leaders there are, the better things will go. Because to me, a leader is someone who stands up to take responsibility. A leader is someone who says, I'll see to it. Or, what needs to get done here. And so it's not a zero-sum game. And I'm more sure of that now than ever. I definitely didn't see it that way when, back in 2006. That's been a real maturity process, I'd say.
So, like with Poe and I, so Poe, co-founded DHL, right? So DHL, crazy global company. And
right.
in his model for creating this insanely fast, rapidly growing company is to say, everybody gets a chance in an hour to lead. There are leadership moments that pop up. It's like a vacuum. And so either you step up or somebody else will step up or nobody steps up. But so the idea of, the manufacturing mindset of leadership is, top down, top of the pyramid. People sit there to command and control. Whereas the leadership we talk about, which is more competitive in service, among groups of people, is that you have like a distributed network of leaders, right? So there's not one one leader who says, I'm the one. But I mean, sometimes you need to have that centralized person to oversee, but it's so much better when you have all these different nodes in your network of people kind of stepping up, going, okay, I'll take the lead on this one, or I'll take the lead on that one. Do you feel politics is the kind of environment that has let you flex your leadership, exercise that leadership in ways that are appreciated?
Well, being involved with the Green Party has been really good that way, because it, part of the worldwide green philosophy is collaboration, and that there's strength in diversity, and that we need to be working cooperatively together. Competition's not going to help. Mm-hmm. There's a long-standing principle of nonviolence in Green Party philosophy and stuff like that. So our political situation, like in Canada, but mostly worldwide, politics is a zero-sum game. You win or you lose. You are the leader. Mm-hmm. And it's set up adversarially. It's quite an ancient system, if you ask me. Like, it's old thinking. It's not super modern. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And but even that calls me to do whatever I can in whatever small role I can play to help change that. Mm-hmm. I don't think competitive governments help people or the planet in any way whatsoever. This is not helpful for sustainability. When everyone's fighting over resources, the Earth loses. Sure. And it's just not the way to do things. So within the Green Party, I'm on the executive now I'm on the board, the executive for our riding association for the Green Party. Mm-hmm. And I have been asked if I would run again in this riding in the next election, because the person who ran previously, my friend who I supported last year, she says she's out now. Okay. And I would run again. And I think that there are lots of opportunities for me to help even just change the conversation. Mm-hmm. I'm not in it for an ego trip. Mm-hmm. I'm not in it for fame. But I know that if I had the opportunity to run in an election, or even to speak more about this, or be involved with more people, having my voice in there automatically changes the whole game. Sure. The whole narrative would change because of my desire to get along, to mm-hmm. take responsibility, to work together, to be collaborative, to change systems, to think systemically. That's a good thing. It's almost a cliche to say that one person can make a difference, and one person, but because it's true. Absolutely, 100%. And I think because your unique voice is what inspires others and unites others and attracts others. So absolutely, yeah, for sure. I like talking to you. This is fun. Thanks, Ran. This is cool. I love it too. Yeah, you're a good soul. I love it. Ending the podcast is always a bit of like a, how do you just go, just like, okay, bye. Bye. But let's just say, okay, if there was one note to leave kind of up in the air to sort of resound and echo for people listening, who would be like, you know what, that gets me motivated to reach out, to get up, to do something. What can you give? What little nugget or little sentence or thought or idea can you give to kind of uplift people or whoever? Okay. Thanks for that opportunity, Ran. That's a fun question. Right away, I had a thought that I wanted to share. And, this idea, of course, that politics is mostly older white men in Canada, that's sort of the feel of it, really lends to this sense that it's dull and serious. But it's just because of who's been involved up till now. I think leadership and even politics can be a lot of fun. And when you look at young people learning to walk, learning to talk, learning to ride a bike, they want something because they're interested and it's cool and they want to know and experience and it's fun. And we can approach more things in life like that. Mm-hmm. Like, what's going on over there? What can I do? Can I make a difference? How can I make that be fun? Mm-hmm. Are we having a fundraiser? Let's make it a dance party. How can we make it more interesting? I think leadership doesn't have to be old and dull. I think making a difference doesn't have to be serious and not fun. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. No, like
Yeah, this is you. This is me. This is like I love it.
This is us. Yes.
You know, this is great. Kerri, thank you so much. This has been I really enjoy talking to you. You're amazing.
Thanks, Ran. I really enjoyed talking to you too. I wanted to hear more about your sense of smell because that's really interesting to me. So maybe we could have a follow-up discussion about that because you live in a opposite world of me, and I'm very curious about that.
For sure. And listen, to wrap it up, if I can go back, rewind a little bit to the photo of you walking in this weird solitude of your, you know, well, in a way, it's time to kind of reflect and take stock. And in terms of service network leadership, what we say is that the real value of what you can get in your own life is to be connected to other people, and that your network, in fact, will feed your soul, nourish your soul. So, you know, it's good to be alone, and it's good to be out in the forest and in the big sky and in the big mountains. But your network, you have different tribes, right? So you have the tribe of the Green Party, you have the tribe of
the Anosmia community.
Anosmia, yeah. Like, who knows? And they can all feed and give you that strength and that community.
Yeah. You're spot on with that.
Thank you so much for joining me, Randall Fancy, for this episode of Shooting It Raw. I really appreciate it. If you want to learn more about the show in general or today's guest in particular, be sure to check out the episode notes at www.shootingraw.com. That's shooting-it-raw.com. I appreciate everyone who takes some time out of their day to give Shooting It Raw a listen. So get out there, make amazing photos, and be sure to appreciate how amazing the world is. Gratitude